of century. And the story goes on to point out that no news media has given attention to this. I mean, the groups involved, the radical leftist fascist groups involved in shutting down Trump's rally in Chicago last week, are now plotting mass civil disobedience, a whole movement to begin next month. In other words, it's Occupy Wall Street going on a concert tour, basically. Anyway, the operation is calling itself Democracy Spring, and they're threatening, quote, drama in Washington with the largest civil disobedience action of the century. And these radicals believe that they can, I don't know what their goal or their methods are here. We'll find out, I guess, soon enough. I don't suspect that it's going to be peaceful. We'll demand that Congress listen to the people and take action to save our democracy. Well, perhaps they're not watching the election that's unfolding before their eyes. Now, this group is backed by numerous organizations, including George Soros' funded groups like MoveOn.org, the Institute for Policy Studies, and others. And they're playing a very prominent role in all of this. Now, you saw what happened last Friday. There is a guest that I'm going to introduce to you in a second, and Jeremy Siegel and Andrew Marcus, both filmmakers, and they also found a website. They actually had an opportunity to interview some of these people. The last person you're going to hear on this cut is the unrepentant terrorist, part of the Weather Underground, Bill Ayers, Barack Obama's friend, the guy that was, the part of the Weather Underground that bombed the Pentagon, the Capitol, New York City Police Headquarters, and said of all days, September 11, 2001, the morning edition of that New York Times newspaper, that he regrets he didn't do more. Now, what's amazing about this, nobody seems to have picked up on the fact that Ayers was there. So listen to these protesters and listen to the last voice you hear is Bill Ayers.
Everybody from the 312 will tell Mr. Donald Trump we said.
That puto. Trump.
Donald Trump.
Who do you guys support? Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders.
Leaning towards Bernie.
Bernie?
Yes.
Tell me why America looks like.
No KKK, no fascist USA.
You're a white man who gets to do whatever he wants to in this space.
Actually, somebody gave it to me for free. Yeah, they were just handing them out.
Apparently, he has a penal complex.
I'm not a Trump fan.
RevCom is the voice of the Revolutionary Communist Party USA.
Take your privilege somewhere else, please.
He's in there organizing a fascist mob that's ready to fight.
Pick up the gun. Revolution has come. Seize that money. Seize that money. Seize that money. Seize that money.
So what this represents is fire from below. That's why it's important.
All right, joining us now is Jeremy Siegel, filmmaker and founder of the website rebelpundit.com. Andrew Marcus, documentary filmmaker, produced and directed Hating Breitbart years ago. They have exclusive audio from these so-called peaceful protesters that literally organized and were sent to the Trump rally on Friday night. Siegel was embedded in the protests and has footage that no one else has. Anyway, Jeremy, thanks for being with us. Tell us what you have and what did you hear and what did you find out being embedded with them? Did they not know that you weren't on their side?
Sean, thanks for having me. Every time I go to these protests, I go as myself. I don't hide who I am. I go out and conduct interviews and try to capture the real essence of what's going on at the protest and the mentality, what's in the mind of these protesters. But what was specifically interesting of note is Bill Ayers. His presence he's always present at these large demonstrations in Chicago, and I think that what we have is a sneak peek into, life in the protest with Bill Ayers. It's radical, and they are actually, what we'll be able to show you is they actually don't seek a resolution to any of the problems that we face in this country.
Well, what did Ayers tell you? Now, you're going to give me, as I understand it, this exclusive footage, video footage, and I'll air it tomorrow night on Hannity, of Bill Ayers. And what does he say to you in this interview? How long did you interview Ayers for?
We have a 6-minute interview with Bill Ayers.
Yeah,
and several other radical, activists at the protest. Bill Ayers, he's in talking about the resolution or resolving the problems we face. He said that this protest is not about electoral politics. They're not going to resolve anything, but what is going to resolve things is the ongoing, continuing struggle for social justice. And what that means is, as long as there is a struggle, as long as there is a fight, they can continue to implement their, vast utopian dream for all of us.
Does he say it in ways that seem like he still clings to his domestic terrorist past, or does he try and just hide that?
I think Bill Ayers was very open with me. I think that I don't think there's anything that he's covering up, and I think that what you're going to start seeing is this has been an evolution that sort of kicked off years ago with the Occupy movement and the Arab Spring. It's morphed into Black Lives Matter, and now, as you just said, Democracy Spring. This really has very little to do with Donald Trump. As you'll see, he's sort of the target. He's the boogeyman for everybody. There's mass-produced. There's so much money that has gone into this mass production of Hitler and demon posters of Donald Trump like we've never seen before at protests. Literally the 2-minute hate from 1984 coming into the real world here. But what's driving it is the underlying principles of an ongoing struggle for social justice that began, or we first started to see in the Occupy movement. Now it's being redirected at Donald Trump. They're fueling rage against Donald Trump. But when you go out and you listen to these people, most of them have very little concept of politics, issues. It's all based on raw emotion, fear, anger, and really vitriolic hatred that we've captured on film.
Andrew, let me get your take on all of this. By the way, Hating Breitbart, if people haven't seen it, you've got to see this. It is such a good documentary that you've done, and I know you released it a couple of years ago. I think I interviewed you at the time, if I remember correctly. But and Andrew was a friend of this program and a friend of mine, and even though we occasionally had differences, I have nothing but love and respect for him, and we really could use him this election cycle. But tell us your take on this.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Sean. You're absolutely right. Andrew is missed sorely. What we're witnessing now is exactly what he was trying to fight against and warn us about. And what we witnessed was, there's no other way to put it. It was a coordinated, premeditated act of intimidation and harassment. Their goal was to shut down this event, and they couch it. You'll see Bill Ayers in this interview. He speaks about how the way to counteract what they see as hate speech from Donald Trump is through reasoned discourse. We do a pretty good job of showing you what.
Yeah, and by the way, they weren't protesting the hate speech of Reverend Jeremiah Wright and the hate speech of Obama. If they bring a knife, we bring a gun, and to get in your friends' faces over the election when he was running. They didn't counter the hate speech of the left. I put entire montages together on radio and TV, and Obama saying they want dirty air and water. They want your grandparents and your children to fend for themselves. They want to throw Granny over the cliff. That's all hate speech. It's creating a perception that's false to create emotional reactions in people, that they get a perception of conservatism that is just completely false and inaccurate.
And Sean, it's totally disingenuous. At that specific venue, at the University of Illinois Chicago, in 2013, Louis Farrakhan came to speak there to a packed and enthusiastic crowd. His message then was gangbangers should use their weapons to protect the assets of the Nation of Islam. And that was probably one of his more tamer messages. There was no protest then. The Huffington Post, which at the bottom of every article they run about Donald Trump, has an editor's note that Donald Trump is a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe. ran a photograph from the 2013 Louis Farrakhan event with a glowing little
Do we have
description underneath. I mean, it's total hypocrisy, and Jeremy's right. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
I have never, except for Michelle Obama and Mrs. Farrakhan being on the cover of Reverend Wright's church newsletter, magazine, whatever it was, I can't believe that Obama and Farrakhan don't know each other. And I've always suspected they were friends. I've never seen video and I've never seen pictures. Do you guys know if that relationship existed?
I don't know if it exists. I know that there's likely a lot of interfaith dialogue going on between these groups because they all seem to have elements that show
Obama's
up.
radical friends. I tried to warn the country about it, and a lot of people didn't pay attention. All right, so let me ask you the last question, both of you. What are we going to see tomorrow night when we air this footage? Jeremy,
go ahead.
Look, what you're going to see is footage that disproves the narrative that's come out of the media since Friday night, and quite frankly from the GOP and other presidential candidates right now, that this is somehow related or Donald Trump is somehow responsible for drawing out this kind of activity. If Ted Cruz was the front runner for the presidency of the United States speaking at that event on Friday night, you would have seen the same thing targeted at him. It doesn't matter that it's Donald Trump. It matters that it's an enemy for them to target and to raise the emotions.
this is going to be a long, hot summer, isn't it?
It's going to get get ugly. This was just the beginning. Listen, Sean, I could tell 3 hours before this thing got violent that it was heavily understaffed and undermanned by law enforcement, and it was going to get violent. I've covered enough of these protests to know and see what was going on there. This was crafted for the world to see, and this is just a preview of what's to come.
That's pretty scary.
The standard set here, Sean. The left in Chicago and now nationwide is going to implement a veto over freedom of speech and freedom of assembly for groups that they disapprove of, and that's anybody that's not them.
Is this going to be Chicago 1968?
Well, I think that's what they're aiming for. I think they.
By the way, for you younger people in the audience, Google it, look it up. It's on your iPhone. Just, do I have to educate everybody? It makes me feel old to say that and know that some people have no clue what I'm talking about.
They're going to make a big move to shut down the Republican convention. I think that's what this is building towards.
So basically you're telling me bring extra security for Hannity when I go to Cleveland.
Yes, lots.
Wow, unbelievable. All right, now I just want everybody to know that on GatewayPundit.com that you guys have a teaser video. We've linked it to Hannity.com, and then we'll show this hopefully tomorrow night on the Fox News channel exclusively, including the interview with Bill Ayers. Guys, you're very generous. Thank you very much for the hard work you did, putting yourself in harm's way, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
And for sharing it with us. Thanks. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number.